The Trijicon RMR. This particular model is the RMO6. This features a 3.25 MOA dot, comes in around $470, and Trijicon claims with a standard CR2032 battery about 4 years battery life. These are the gold standard as far as durability goes. Trijicon is known for making some really robust stuff, whether it's this, an ACOG, or the VCOG series. They also have a very unique look. This top little half dome up here is just reminiscent of an RMR. Now they do offer other options with other features, but this one is just a standard red illuminated dot. One standout feature that I'm always talking about are these big giant buttons on the side, positive and negative. Easy to figure out what's what, easy to press if you need to. But as it turns out, Trijicon owns the patent on this, and as a result, other manufacturers can't do that because then Trijicon sues them. So that will explain why you don't see this more frequently. It's a bit of a buzzkill because how are you going to move forward if you're constantly saying, you can't do that, only I can do that? Most of the time, it's competition that drives products forward, not just, telling someone you can't do something. So it's a bit of a buzzkill, but at least we have it here. On the bottom, you can see our standard port for our CR2032 battery. We have 2 contacts over there for the positive, and this big sort of star for the negative. There is also this gasket that fits inside this groove. So if you do have a problem, let's say this gets cut, there's a lot of dirt, you could always pull this out to clean it thoroughly, which I actually quite like. As far as weight, Trijicon claims 1.2 ounces with the battery. As you can see, we're just shy of that on my scale. So that not only makes this one of the lighter optics that we've seen so far, but also definitely one of the most durable ones, because their track record is basically legendary at this point. So what's not to like for around $470? You're buying something that's not only made in the US, extremely durable, and very lightweight. It also has these great buttons, like I was saying, which are, they're a little hard to press. You do have to put some gusto behind it, which means you got to be mindful of that. But at least you know exactly where they are, and you can go positive, negative, or press them both at the same time to shut this thing off. Now, it's going to be sacrilege using a Holosun product on a Trijicon product, but I just want to hear these turrets. Definitely a really good sound to them, and feel as good counterclockwise, but clockwise it was sort of muted. Very good audio response, but on the windage, there's absolutely no feel whatsoever. Now, this is a used product. To what level, I do not know. This was graciously sent in by Delta34. He's got a great YouTube channel. He is the Trijicon ACOG guy. So if you want to find out more about ACOGs, check out his link in the description below. He's got an awesome channel, and the dude's just a really great guy, because I reached out to him from a mutual friend of ours, and he was like, what do you want to review? And he just sent something in the mail for me to check out, and I'm eternally grateful for him. So, Delta34, thank you very much. But that's all we're going to be able to talk about right now. Let's get behind this thing and see just how bad that tint and distortion is.
There's a lot to talk about with the RMR, so let's get started. First off, you're going to expect to pay around $500 for these. Every once in a while, you will find them for cheaper, typically the mid to high 400s, but expect around $500 with tax and shipping when applicable. If that applicable, yes, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. No one is buying the RMR because they're saying that there's no tint or distortion to the glass. There is a ton of it. If you've never gotten behind an RMR, it is extremely noticeable, especially if you've gotten behind some other stuff that doesn't have it. I will be making comparisons very soon so you can better see what I am talking about. As far as how bad the distortion is here on our 30-yard power lines, you can see it is extremely apparent. And for any of you that are saying, oh, well, I don't ever shoot that far, so I gotta, I shoot a lot closer than that. Okay, no problem. How's 3 feet sound? Here's a perfect representation of what you can expect as far as tint and distortion at basically any sort of distance. We're about 3 feet from the wall, and it is very apparent. It's almost like a blue marble. Some people say, oh, well, it was designed to be like that, to have that sort of fisheye effect. It's just part of the system. And I like to say to those people that they are wrong. Trijicon developed a product as good as they could when they developed it, and they never updated it. Up until now with the newer enclosed pistol sights, similar to what all these other manufacturers are doing, because, oh, there's a trend that other manufacturers are doing. Trijicon's late to the party by like 8 years. Nevertheless, At 50 yards, you get the exact same result, so don't tell me that it's just one distance or another. When the optic is about 18 inches from your eye, which is where it's currently mounted from the camera and where I have all of my dots set up for just my length of arms and whatnot, it's about 18 inches. At 18 inches, you can expect to see this sort of performance. The good thing is, when you do move your head around the dot and it's rigid, at least the dot doesn't dance around all that much. As for the buttons, they might be big, they might be easily accessible, but they can be really hard to push, and sometimes even hard to find. Despite the fact that they're huge, you can't really tell where the center is. You got to really jam your entire finger into it. I get to the point where I just decide to say, where the fuck is it? And I just start jamming my thumb into it. It's one of those things. Yes, I know they made the buttons probably hard to press on purpose, so this way it doesn't automatically brighten up in your pocket or in your holster. So I get it, but it's still something that is a little bit of a buzzkill. When we put this optic at a more or less carbine distance length in front of us, basically just in front of a magnifier, the distortion actually gets a lot better. The tint is the tint, you can't really fix that, but the image does seem a lot flatter. So the closer you have this dot to your eye, the better. If you want to run this on your carbine as a dedicated optic, at least you won't have to worry about distortion ruining your entire day. Or if you have it more or less what I think other people would run this as, an offset red dot for whatever optic you're running as your main, this would be a perfectly fine backup for that. If you are that one person that is going to be running this as your main sight, can you magnify it? Of course you can. The image is just going to be very blue. There's almost no distortion whatsoever, and the dot does magnify extremely well. It's very crisp and clear, and it maintains a very high level of sharpness. The image overall is very sharp, but as you can see at the very far edge at 9 o'clock, the rooftop over there is gray and the sky is blue, but everything through this thing is very, very, very blue. Again, something you can't get around. I'm sure there are some other RMR products out there that aren't as bad, but this one is notorious. Under nods, the dot is beautiful. It gets to the perfect brightness. There are 2 night vision modes. There are 5 daytime brightness settings. And under night vision, the dot is gorgeous. But you can see the glass does not transmit that much light going through it. So it's very similar with what we saw with the green EPS 6MOA if you saw that video. The dot, though, again maintains a very high level of sharpness and clarity, and it's very easy to pick up. So good on you, Trijicon, for at least making the dot really nice. There's going to be a lot of comparisons to this thing, so get ready for it. The RMR is going to be on the left. The EPSs, both the red and the green, will be on the right. You can see that the red EPS does have some level of tint. The tint is there, so this way you could more easily see the red illumination to the dot, blah, and you can see the dot better without having to kill the battery as fast. The RMR, however, has significantly more tint and significantly more distortion. Over this picture, again at about 3 feet, the EPS has very little distortion. It's got a little bit of parallax when the image shifts, but as far as the image maintaining a level of flatness, while there is no comparison between these two, the EPS is the winner. Overall brightness, the RMR gets extremely bright, but so does the EPS, and the EPS has the option, if you opt for it, for the multi-reticle like you see here with the dot and the circle, or one or the other, or both. Now, you don't have to have that option with the EPS, but if you want it, there you got it. As far as the red versus the green, again, personal preference. It's the 6MOA green. Green doesn't pick up that well to my eye, my astigmatism. During the day, it's fine, but in lower light environments, the green sort of blossoms out, and the green doesn't perform as well under nods as the red does. Again, though, you can see a fairly similar performance as far as the overall just parallax of the EPS, but there's almost no tint. So personal preference is going to be 100% in full swing on this, as far as what's going to be better for you and your eye, if you're judging your purchase solely on the clarity of the glass and the sharpness. But you don't just buy an optic for how it looks when you're, staring at a picture on the wall. You buy it because you want to become a better shooter with your pistol, or at least you want to be able to make more consistent shots with your pistol, hopefully faster. The window in the EPS is much larger, believe it or not. And the distortion really does make a big difference when you're going from something as bad as the RMR to the EPS. For me. Now, some people say, well, it doesn't bother me. That's probably because you have a couple thousand rounds through an RMR and you're so conditioned to it that doesn't really matter. Some competitive shooters even have tape over the front lens of their red dot because they use both eyes, as you should when you're shooting any sort of optic system, even if you're shooting irons, and you don't even notice the distortion or the tint. I completely get it. But if you like to be able to use the entire red dot to your advantage, then something like the EPS is going to be better. Again, my opinion, from my personal preferences, that's what I find. And once again, for that single soul out there that wants to run this as their main optic on a carbine of some sort, which one is better for that role? Well, it's hands down the EPS. Not only is the distortion still better, the window is larger, the dots you can get 2 MOA, 2 MOA with the circle, 6 MOA, red and green, hopefully amber. I'm bugging Holosun about doing an amber one, but when you go to magnify it, the EPS still comes out on top. When I filmed the EPS Magnified this day, the smoke and haze you see in the air is from the Canadian wildfires, so it's not as perfectly clear and crisp as you could ever hope for, but it's still a much better image with better distortion, and you get a little bit better contrast. The green MOA version is much better over the red for the EPS, but if you're solely going on red, and a lot of people would, especially if you're shooting in, or if you live in a wooded environment, you're not even going to even consider the green. Another area where I feel the EPS is a little bit better is under nods. You can see that the reticle on both of these is very sharp and clear, very easy to pick up, but the glass on the EPS, especially in the red version, lets in a lot more light than the RMR. This is, again, a serving size of 1. I only had 1 RMR and 1 red EPS. Maybe you see things a little bit differently than me, which I honestly wouldn't doubt. As far as the price, both of these are actually really close, within about $100 of one another. Granted, you can find them on sale, you can find them used, you can get a crazy deal blowout for some holiday, and you might be able to say, oh, well, I got mine for $300 less, whatever the case may be. But deciding between these two, it's entirely up to you. The EPSs have been great as far as their track record goes lately, but no one can argue with the RMR. The RMR is proven for decades now to be extremely robust. And they claim about 4 years worth of battery life at its middle brightness setting. So you buy the RMR not because it looks pretty, but because it's going to probably work for the rest of its life, and it's not going to let you down. So that's why you opt for something like the RMR as opposed to perhaps the EPS. Or if you just want something made in the US as opposed to China. Those are some pretty serious things to consider. But see, I don't want to have a mailbox on top of my pistol. I want it to be nice and streamlined, and I prefer open emitter red dots. Okay, sure. Whatever floats your boat. One of the most recent ones I've done is the Holosun SCS. This one was set up for the Glock MOS and is fairly small. But Holosun has recently started introducing these in different footprints for different guns, and thus they get a little bit larger. The SCS is a fine little sight. It's a single button on the side. It's rated for like 50,000 hours battery life, blah, 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 blah. Again, SCS solar charging sight. It's got a solar panel, it's got auto brightness, it's got a single button operation, which is a little bit finicky, but it's simple enough to operate once you read the owner's manual once or twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times, you know. But it's simple and it's small. And under regular vision like this through your eye, yeah, it's got a smaller window, but again, this one was set up specifically for Glock MOS. But it's got pretty good looking glass, very low distortion, and decent reticles. I mean, this comes in like around $350 normally, so you could find them for low 300s if you get lucky. But if you are the type of person that wants to run this as your main optic, it's not going to have the best performance under magnification. So just keep that in mind. It's not ideal in any sort of conditions, but it's an open emitter similar to the RMR, and it's something I could make a quick comparison for all of you out there. Okay. Maybe I do want a giant mailbox on top of my pistol. What can you offer as a comparison? Simple. The Aimpoint ACRO P2. Now, it's been a couple of weeks, couple of months since I did the ACRO review, and my limited testing with it was a couple hundred rounds, and I run it fairly easily. I'm not, barricading, ramming it, and, clearing jams and plunging it in the ocean. I'm just running it at square ranges, a couple of matches here and there, nothing crazy. And I had no problems with the ACRO. The glass on it is beautifully clear. The dot is really nice and sharp, good colors. It's a really nice little mailbox, but it's not little, it's big. It's kind of heavy, and it's got an extremely small window looking through it. Both of these right now are currently cropped the exact same, and the RMR doesn't have a great window, but the ACRO is even smaller. But it magnifies perfectly fine. These things come in around $600, so a damn slight more expensive than the RMR. And you could find them very rarely for like the mid to high 500s. And even then, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. I actually got an opportunity recently to buy one for like $540 brand new. And I was like, I like it, but I don't think I like it that much. And I ended up buying something else, which will come to the channel very soon. It's a nice little mailbox. But there are a lot of people that I've started talking to recently that have had major problems with the ACRO. Either lenses falling out, moisture getting inside, battery drain being huge. So you're spending a lot of money on something that has some problems. The RMRs don't really have any real inherent problems other than just their design ones, like the massive amount of tint, for example. So you got to figure out which one you'd rather go with. I was a bigger fan of the ACRO, but I think I'd rather spend $400 on an RMR than $600 on an ACRO and probably have to RMA it. So take that for what it's worth, ladies and gentlemen. See, I don't have a whole lot of money. What's a cheap red dot you can offer? Sure, the Primary Arms Classic 24mm. These are about 150 bucks. They are made in China, but they've got really good looking glass, a nice big old fat red dot that stays pretty sharp, easy to adjust controls. They are a little bit on the wide side, but look at how big that window is. It's huge. Fantastic. And I have been running it pretty hard, a couple hundred rounds. I haven't done any serious abuse to it yet, but it's been perfectly fine. In fact, the 21mm classic version has been on my CCW for almost 1,000 rounds now, and it's given me not a single issue. And the batteries lasted, almost 6 months. It's actually pretty damn impressive. Now, as far as the overall distortion, there is none. As far as the overall color tinting, there is none. As far as the window size, it's quite large. And it seems to just hold up fine. Again, for 150 bucks, there's not much you can really expect. And for that price point, yes, there are a lot of different options on the market. But this is one that I have a fair amount of experience with that I can say, in my serving size of one, it's actually been really enjoyable to use. So my choice for a real budget open emitter red dot, the PA Classic 24mm is pretty damn nice. It is a bottom mount battery. The regular plate isn't super good, but it's fine. It mounts up to an RMR footprint, so it's like, yeah, why not? At least if this is what you want. If you're unsure about what you want to get and you just want to throw on a red dot to see if it even works for you, do you want to spend $400 or 150 bucks? And the nice thing is about a $150 red dot that's got a lifetime warranty is you could buy an offset red dot mount for it, throw it on another gun, on another setup, and just run it and not care about it. Now granted, if it's a duty gun or something you got to rely your life on, then you got to pony up and get something like an RMR. Their track record, their battery life, their durability is why you buy an RMR. The Classic, it might be pretty good, but it's not going to be, or at least I highly doubt. I'm not going to say definitively because I haven't put it to the test. It might hold up just fine, but something tells me it's not going to. If you have to trust your life to it, you got to pony up. If you don't have to, or if you're unsure if you even like red dots on your pistols to begin with, get something like this. It's really inexpensive. And if you don't like it, you could sell it, or you could just give it to somebody, or use it on a different setup. The Trijicon RMR is something that I had very limited experience with until I got my hands on this one from Delta 34. And all of my experiences with it, I can say, are fairly justified. It's got a fairly small window. It's got a lot of tint and distortion. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, but it was designed like that and that's how it's supposed to be. I don't believe that. I believe it was designed to be as good as it could at the time, but technology has advanced a significantly long way since then. And it's just been left in its doldrums of it's a military contract optic at this point, and we can't touch it because it'll defeat, the military contract. And big companies with big military contracts don't care about the civilian market all that much because all their money's going to the Department of Defense. I can't say I blame them. But could anyone? I don't think anyone could. I ran this thing for about 500 rounds. I had not a single problem. As far as dirt and debris getting inside, I had no real issues with it. But again, I wasn't charging this thing with barricades and throwing it through the mud. I'm sure if I did, I would have gotten a lot of dirt and debris inside that emitter. I forgot whose video I was watching, but it was TFB TV's. They were testing the Echelon. He had an RMR on it. He had gotten some water on the PCB board around the emitter, and it was starbursting, and they couldn't dry it out, but it worked perfectly fine. And that just goes to show the testament of the RMR. You buy it because it's durable, it's going to last the test of time, and yeah, you might have to give up some nuances like distortion and tint, and maybe not the perfect looking reticle all the time, in a fairly small window, but it's something that you can probably trust your life on. I would have no problems trusting my life to it, and a lot of people do. My good friend, he runs a lot of competitions. He's broken 2 or 3 SIGs, high quality SIGs, and now he switched to an RMR, and he hasn't had any problems with it. And that's the reason why you buy an RMR. You don't care about what people think, you just want the best thing for you. So with that, a huge thank you for all of you for watching. A huge thank you, Delta34, for sending this optic in. It was great to finally actually run one for quite some time. And could I train around its imperfections? Absolutely, I think I could. But I'm still a fan of, if they don't need to be there or don't have to be there, I'd rather them not be there. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. And as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.